It's time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
We needed some time with a number of guys to try to recover, from some of the nagging injuries that we have. So it's good to try to get our guys some recovery time, and also our pitchers. If you look over the last 2 weekends, we've really used our bullpen a lot. So, a few days off to be able to give those guys time to put the ball down and just let their arms recover a little bit is a good thing.
Sometimes you need to look each other in the eyes and make sure that everybody's focused properly. And so we made a few adjustments after that game. That was at this point, I think, a turning point for us. So I won't share everything we talked about. But it was just a matter of if we need to focus. We need to make sure that everything is being done 24/7 to make sure that we have our best chance for success.
And welcome into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on this Thursday, the 3rd day of May, 2018, along with Phil Kornbluth, Professor Tom Hayes. I'm Will Pelagic. Hope you're enjoying yourself on this Thursday. We got a lot to get to today. We're going to hear from both USC and Clemson baseball coaches Mark Kingston and Monty Lee, respectively. We'll continue our trip around the Clemson and South Carolina opponents for this spring recap. Mark Passwaters of AggieYell.com will join us not just to talk about what happened with Texas A&M this spring, but also to talk about the Gamecocks' newest commit, Nick Harvey. We'll also hear from Furman head coach Clay Hendricks on recapping his spring. We'll hear from the money coach as well, Rusty Wallace, who spoke yesterday at the governor's mansion in South Carolina. A lot to get to today, Corn. But I tell you what, we have to start with the first place Atlanta Braves now as they sweep the New York Mets with 11-0 victory. I mean, I thought they were a year away, Corn, but it seems to me that the waiting is now over.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes you don't know what you don't know, as they like to say. And the Braves don't know how good they apparently are right now. And maybe they won't wake up for a long, long time, and they'll be able to build themselves a little bit of a cushion in the National League East. I mean, to go up and just thrash the Mets in a 3-game series and put together a very nice little run here to move into first place in the early part of May for a team that was projected to finish near the bottom of the division and was expected to be at least another year or so away before it was truly competitive. Well, that just speaks volumes to the manager, who's doing a heck of a job, and these young players who are buying in with enough graybeards pro to sort of keep them straight. I mean, Freeman, though he's young, he's old. Markakis is just purely old. Suzuki is old. Well, yeah, but I mean, he's old. He's been around a long time. Suzuki, the Gamecocks faced Suzuki in the College World Series a long, long time ago. But, you know, Tehran was great today. They're getting some tremendous timely hitting. They got good young players stepping up. It's all good if you're a Braves fan right now.
Well, the key point is here, when you look at a guy like Acuna, they start to see and look at things. As I said before, I want to see him play 15, 20 games across and see if they find a weakness, because they haven't been able to find one right now. I think the dangerous thing about a guy like him early on is he'll swing at anything, but he's got a good eye for where the ball is in the strike zone. But even if it's a little out of the strike zone, they are very aggressive hitters. They remind me early on in this small sample of the Clemente Pirates. You throw the first pitch, they're attacking it. They're not sitting there waiting to see what you have. And a lot of what the Mets' problems, they've made the first pitches too fat in this series, and those young guys have jumped on it.
These numbers from this series, 21-2. I know you don't want to hear this, Will.
I know.
21-2 in runs, 41-15 in hits, 5-game winning streak. They hit 4 home runs today. I mean, that's all good. That's all good.
Acuna, they have won 7 of 8 since he has joined the club. He joined them for that game in Cincinnati. And then, of course, they get the sweep of the Mets and the series victory over Philadelphia. They'll be back home for his first opportunity for the home fans at SunTrust Park to see him in Atlanta when the Braves take on San Francisco.
But can we really, really just take a moment here to talk about South Carolina's team?
No, we can't. We really can't.
Up 3-0 in Houston today. Lost the lead with 5 runs Houston scored in the bottom of the 7th.
Not cool.
Come back with 3 in the top of the 9th to win it 6-5. Sweep the Astros. Go 6-1.
I thought they won the first
Oh, you're
game.
right. Won 3 out of 4.
Yeah.
Swept the Angels. Won 3 out of 4. A 6-1 road trip for the beloved, cuddly, huggable, lovable New York Yankees.
But then again, what they'll tell you is just look at that banner that's up there in left field below those train tracks. That's what they'll tell you.
Who's they?
The Astros is what they'll tell you.
Well, I mean, I'll just say look at the 27 we've got below our train tracks.
The one that matters is the one that's hanging there right now.
We got the 27.
Well,
looking for 28.
As we said,
but that's because you've always had the checkbook.
That's okay.
That's not the way it's supposed to go. In
it's called acquisition of talent.
You guys are
whatever the rules allow.
You guys,
but then again, you broke your own rules, forgot about your farm system.
No, we didn't.
Yes, you did.
No.
Yes, you did, because that's why you fell into that trough the last few years that you're trying to climb out of, because you tried to buy everybody else's players and forgot about your farm system.
Well, our farm system has been here very productive the last 2 years. Look at all the homegrown talent.
I'm talking about the last 10 years.
There was a little bit of a dead brain period there for the Yanks. I'll give you that.
You guys are crazy. We'll talk a little bit more about what's going on with the teams a little bit closer to home here, with South Carolina facing number 4 Ole Miss as we get ready for that series this weekend at Founders Park. Get ready for Clemson series against Florida State this weekend. Feel free to join the program, 800-956-7266. That's the phone number to get in touch with us, your Palmetto Sports Connection. So as we get in touch with what we will see this weekend, Mark Kingston called the Ole Miss Ball Club a complete team, Corn. They're one game out in the SEC West, and right now this is South Carolina's time. It'll be their last opportunity to face a team, at least in their ballpark, that is primed at least solidly in the NCAA tournament. This will be very interesting to see for this ball club, especially if they can keep things up between what they did at LSU or with LSU and what they did this past week at Vanderbilt.
Well, and Mark Kingston today did not paint a rosy picture for his team against this Ole Miss team, in that not that they can't beat them, but Ole Miss, he said, is good in every aspect of the game. Great offense, terrific pitching, very good defense, and the Gamecocks have gotten better and better, except for their starting pitching. Coming off last weekend, the starting pitching was atrocious, and they're not going to beat Ole Miss and win a series if they can't get a starter into the 5th inning. That's just not, or past the 5th inning. That's just not going to happen.
As I said before, there are mitigating circumstances. As I said before, road teams, I haven't heard a pitcher comment that they like the mound at Vanderbilt. That could have been an anomaly.
And I asked about that too, Pro, and he said that they didn't want to use any excuses. So, I mean, I understand it, but I mean, Vanderbilt's pitchers made it work, and South Carolina's bullpen made it work.
Well, here's the key about it is because I don't like the nomenclature that's being used, because I give people reasons why things happen. I'm not calling it an excuse.
Right.
So people want to call it excuses so they can flush it. You got to look at a problem right in the face and say, look, is it the mound? And that's how you make decisions. As I've said before, a lot of times we come to the wrong conclusions, not because we find the right answers, but we find the right answers to the wrong questions. And the wrong question is to say your pitching is struggling. It's the mound.
Conversely, Corn, Clemson taking on one of the legends in college baseball, and Mike Martin at Florida State. And while Clemson right now sits in first place in that ACC Atlantic, it's obviously a situation where you're dealing with a league that's somewhat down, at least nationally, but Florida State still looked at as one of the perennial powers, and another chance for them to make a statement.
No doubt about it. And I mean, Florida State is still in the hunt in the Atlantic Division at 13-10, 31-14 overall is nothing to sneeze at. Very good at home this year, the Seminoles, 23-6. So, Mike Martin's got another competitive team. Does he have a great team? Does he have a team that can go into Clemson and win a series? Does he have a team that will certainly get to a regional? Can he get to a super regional and back to Omaha? He's closing in. He is closing in on the all-time win mark for college baseball coaches.
Tied right now.
I think he is. Yeah. So it could be a landmark weekend for him at Clemson. So this will by no means be an easy weekend for the Tigers.
Some new contracts to talk about in college football, and also our poll question of the week, which involves Clemson and its vaunted defense.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
Welcome back, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on this Thursday. I know in the capital city we've had people complaining about the traffic, Corn. I know I had no problem getting in. You didn't.
Well, I had a police escort, the typical police escort in my limo, so I never really have any trouble.
Oh, I thought you didn't land the Sports Talk copter on the roof.
It's getting maintenance for my trip tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
You better not land on this roof.
Hey, can I say two things here?
Sure.
About ESPN experts mouthing off about quarterbacks.
Oh.
Well, you got Luganville saying that Kerryon Joyner will never or should never play quarterback at South Carolina, that he would be an outstanding receiver because he's such a good athlete, which is, let's give the kid a chance. I mean, the kid came in to play quarterback. That's in his mind. That's in his heart. That's what Muschamp promised him. And if they recruit over him at quarterback down the road, and he wants to stay at South Carolina and contribute and be a Gamecock, then maybe so, if he's not the best quarterback on the team. But my goodness, the guy's gone through 15 practices, and you're already making a judgment like that. Totally unfair. Totally, anybody can have an opinion, but come on, man, you got a national platform. Try and be a little more open-minded and fair about it. And then you got Barrett Sallee. All right, whatever his name is.
He's from CBS. He's not from ESPN.
From CBS, and he was on Feinbaum's show, and he projects that Hurts will not start at Alabama, and he doesn't think he'll be at Alabama by the first game of the season.
Oh.
So
interesting.
Wow. That's a pretty strong call as well. The father of Hurts has already spoken about the kid needs to be playing quarterback starting at Alabama, if not somewhere. But if he's not at Alabama, then unless he goes down a division, he's not going to be playing anywhere if he decides to.
Well,
leave.
he could transfer to Michigan, Corn. I mean, you could play right away if you go there.
Apparently so.
Mitigating circumstances. Isn't that new rule?
Mitigating circumstances. I lost my job to a younger player who'd only played in a couple of games the previous year.
Well, the key point is, I think a lot of guys have in their head there's only one way to play quarterback, especially at the college level. There's plenty of ways to play it. And Corn, we've seen guys athletic. Let's think about Connor Shaw and Savell Newton.
Mm-hmm.
What did they have over the other quarterbacks that South Carolina ever had?
What's that?
They had more transitions on first downs, on third down conversions than anybody. Why? Because not only did they learn to throw, but they also learned to use their legs. It was almost, sometimes South Carolina fans would sit there and it's 3rd and 5, and they weren't worried.
You know,
because if he doesn't find anybody open, he's going to run for the first down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the weirdest thing about Dacarrion Joyner, and again, I don't know how much Luganville has seen of Dacarrion. I know that you and I, we all saw the spring game.
Well, he did the spring game.
That's right. He was part of that cast and crew of pseudo officials who was there at the spring game.
Mm-hmm.
That was really kind of again, that just tells you how important the spring game is, or how actually much we actually have to put inside
I do think the spring game is important to the coaches because they see it as another practice.
It's recruiting. It's all for recruiting.
It's for recruiting, but I mean, they're on the practice field and they're coaching up and they're still looking at things. I mean, for example, look at Tennessee.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't happy with effort that he was getting out of his players. Yes, it was a recruiting event and it was on ESPN, but he's coaching his team and he's calling out his players for lack of effort in the second half.
But I'm also sitting here and looking at this and saying, you know, there's so much that we don't see. And quite honestly, there was such little. I mean, if we're not seeing it, what is Luganville seeing? I mean, I don't want to sit here and say that this is kind of the same thing what people were saying. I mean, you were seeing people at the draft talking about Lamar Jackson having to switch to wide receiver. He was picked in the first round by Baltimore.
I actually think that Joyner has a place as quarterback in South Carolina's offense.
Absolutely.
He is the second most talented quarterback they have.
I totally agree with you.
I mean, you know, if something happens to Bentley,
they're screwed.
They can't go to Skarnecchia.
I'm
sorry. And I don't know, maybe Jay Ulrich, if he gets better, I don't know. He was a good quarterback in high school, but we've seen nothing from him. But I know watching the spring game that I saw, even though he had the 2 interceptions, I saw athleticism out of Joyner that everybody knows he has. If you put him in the right package, in the right plays, and running the football at the quarterback position is a big part of today's offense, he can make some good things happen for you.
Yeah, we saw with Lamar Jackson where a lot of times your strong safety and your linebackers in the middle of the field had to stay at home because they were afraid he was going to come out of the pocket. And then that's when they turn the running game on you.
Now, the question will become, you know, as he gets older and he looks at his future, and if he thinks he can play in the NFL, does he think he can play in the NFL as a quarterback, or does he need to consider making that position for his professional future?
Well, his biggest problem right now is he needs to figure out how to play the position at the collegiate level, and he has to know right away that he will not be able to have the elusiveness, or at least the effective elusiveness like he had in high school. I think a lot of plays break down in high school. Guys will start to take off and run. We're talking, it feels like we were having the same discussion about Kelly Bryant going into last season. And I think that Dacarrion Joyner found out very quickly that the linebackers are a lot faster at this level. And, you know, even when you have players from college go to the NFL, they're much faster at that level as well. So you can't escape from a lot of these situations. You have to be able to trust your arm and trust your progression.
But, you know, Kelly Bryant proved us all wrong.
True.
He proved us all wrong. That he is a capable quarterback.
Of course.
That he can throw the football, that he can throw the deep ball, that he can tuck it and run. Actually runs better, faster than Deshaun Watson. I mean,
probably throws better on the run than he does sitting in the pocket.
Maybe so. So the point is the improvement that he made from his redshirt sophomore year to his junior year was immense. Now he's getting a lot of pressure from Trevor Lawrence in particular, maybe some of the others. How much improvement did he show to the coaches? We didn't see it in the spring game. How much did he show throughout spring to the coaches to convince them that he is still the number one guy?
I think the thing about the mental makeup of a quarterback is, first of all, you have to have leadership qualities about you, and your team has to believe in you. Also, in yourself, Corn, you got to know that sometimes your greatest weapon is your threat to come out of the pocket. Don't always run out of there, but because guys stay at home or they're out of position because they think you're going to come out of the pocket, that opens up passing lanes that other quarterbacks may not have.
This is a bit of a preview to what we'll talk about tomorrow with Louisville's Howie Lindsey when he talks about the Cardinals spring game. The projected heir apparent, Jawan Pass of Louisville, he is a projected more balanced passer than Lamar Jackson. And the wild card ability of Lamar Jackson, while it's a nice weapon to have, it was something like, from what Howie was saying to me, it kind of frustrated by Petrino a bit that sometimes Lamar Jackson was a little too quick to run with the football. And because of that, it led to some unpredictability. It probably put Louisville into disadvantageous situations on offense. And now they're able to actually run more to what his model scale of an offense is versus exactly, you know, trying to basically wait to see what Lamar's going to do.
All right, one more argument to make against putting the cart before the horse, maybe.
What's that?
Sporting News ranking the top 25 quarterbacks in the country for 2018.
Uh-oh. Don't say
Kelly
Trevor Lawrence is on that list.
Kelly Bryant is ranked 13.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Trevor Lawrence is ranked 25. He is ranked the 25th best quarterback, never having played a college down. But again, people saw him in the spring game, and listen, the guy was impressive. If you draw conclusions from that, the guy was impressive in the spring game. Second pass was that big pass down the right sideline, dropped right into the basket of the receiver. He's impressive. People are already, building the hype for him. I don't know how he can live up to the hype and the expectations.
I just want to know when he's getting his statue at the State House.
Yeah, that'll be coming pretty soon, I would think.
The clay has already been molded.
Guys, funny. We'll get back to the baseball. We'll hear from the head coach of the Gamecocks, Mark Kingston, as we preview this series against Ole Miss. Also, continue to talk about what's going on with the Tigers and Gamecocks as they get ready for their fall practices for football.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Welcome back to Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Along with Phil Kornblue, Professor Tom Hayes, yours truly, Will Pelagic, here with you. 800-956-7266. Did you notice how almost as if they were doing so in concert, Corn, that Miami and Georgia announced extensions for their football head coaches?
Very interesting, yeah. I mean, you got Mark Richt getting an extension at Miami and being rewarded for what they think is good work that he has done. Contract now through 2023. Of course, he was 9-4 his first season, then 10-3 last year, made it to the ACC championship game. So making progress there. He signed a, returned to his original contract, 6-year deal that was believed to be worth more than $4 million annually. So they're taking care of him. And then Georgia today, Kirby Smart, a new 7-year deal, about $7 million per, so about $49 million on his contract. This according to various sources that Georgia media reporting about the negotiations. So his deal now extended through 2024, and this makes Smart fifth in the average annual compensation among FBS coaches. So he's at 7 years, $49 million, so roughly $7 million a year. Saban is what, about is he plus $8 million?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge. The number's huge.
Where is the ceiling for these college football coaches?
The ceiling is what Alabama is going to pay Dabo to come there.
Oh, my.
I'm kidding.
No. I mean, listen, you make that statement in jest. That might have some truth. What they will offer.
They offer the golden gooses in intensive care.
Do you think when that day comes, you think they would go $10 million per year? Alabama?
I think he's worth every penny of it to them. See, because here's the thing. The greatest thing about Alabama trying to hire Dabo Swinney is not only do you get your own head coach, but you neutralize what many believe is your greatest threat to a championship. You kill two birds with one stone.
Unless, of course, then Clemson let's look at what Clemson would do if Dabo were to leave. If everybody is still on the staff as it is now, would they look at Brent Venables?
They'd be co-head coaches, Tony Elliott and
would they look at Jeff Scott or Tony Elliott? Yeah, what would they do?
Coaches.
Would they call Chad Morris back? What would they do?
Before they do anything, I would get one of those great tobacco auctioneers in Florence area and have Clemson on one side and Alabama. Do I hear 10 million? Do I hear 10 million? So,
well, would Clemson try and outspend Alabama? How deep is Clemson's pocket?
I was going to say, how much do they have to spend? Not that Clemson's, a pauper, but I mean, 10 million is 10 million. It counts the same both ways.
Yeah. So the question is, how deep would Clemson go if the bidding started at 10 mil, let's say? Or maybe Dabo, being the practical guy that he is, loyal guy that he is, will stand up and say, listen, cut out this foolishness. I'm not going to Alabama. I'm a lifer at Clemson as long as they continue to treat me well and we continue to do well.
But he'll never say
just
that.
Pay me accordingly. He could tell Dan Radakovich that privately, perhaps. Maybe never say it publicly.
Well, that's the thing. He hasn't said it publicly yet. That's the one thing that would give me pause.
Well, no coach wants to be painted into a corner. Let's say Dan moves on somewhere else. A new AD comes in. He doesn't like Dabo or vice versa. Right now, Clemson have the Brady family of administration. The president is beloved. The president loves the AD. The AD loves the coach loves the AD. The coach loves the president. Everybody's together. Board of trustees seems to love everybody. They've got the Brady bunch of leadership going on up there right now.
See,
no one's saying Marsha.
Well, see, this is the deal. Their administration understands that Clemson is trying to really brand themselves as a tremendous academic institution. And their administration right now realizes that when you have a winning athletic program, especially a football team, you get more applications from students.
True.
And people have to understand that one of your greatest recruiting tools has nothing to do with athletics.
Mhm.
It has everything to do with academics. And once you have more kids in the funnel, guess what? Now you can pick and choose higher quality students because you have more in the funnel. Their administration understands that.
Sports Talk brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. Visit foundersfcu.com to find out how they can assist you in all of your financial needs. Transitioning to the Diamond, South Carolina this weekend, taking on number 4 Ole Miss. We heard a little bit earlier from head coach Mark Kingston about their weekend series at Founders Park.
Sometimes you need to look each other in the eyes and make sure that everybody's focused properly. And so we made a few adjustments after that game. That was at this point, I think, a turning point for us. So I won't share everything we talked about, but it was just a matter of we need to focus. We need to make sure that everything is being done 24/7 to make sure that we have our best chance for success. So I would say that's probably in a nutshell what we talked about.
Mark, any adjustments or changes with the starting rotation, and what do they need to do differently that they didn't do last weekend?
Well, number one, no, it'll be the same order this weekend. Number two, they need to pitch better, and that'll start with command. That'll start with their control, getting ahead of hitters, staying in the strike zone much better than they have. They just can't fall behind. They have good stuff, but they don't have such good stuff that if they fall behind it and get into hitters' counts, that teams can't hit their fastballs. That's the bottom line. So need command of all their pitches, but for most of these guys, for all three of those guys, when they're throwing their off-speed pitches for strikes, it makes their fastballs play up even more. So to me, the number one thing for our pitchers is that they have to command the strike zone.
You guys have had 4 days off for the first time in what seems like forever. Just how do you guys make sure the rust doesn't build up with no midweek game and with another top 5 team coming in?
You just prepare properly. We had a good hitting workout yesterday. We'll have a good all-around workout today, both offensively and defensively. The pitchers have stayed in their normal routine. So in exam week, you have to give the guys a little bit of space. You have to give them the opportunity to prepare properly for their exams and do well academically. They're student athletes, so you have to make sure you give them that space. But you just have to balance that to make sure that they're ready for Friday night against Ole Miss.
Seems like now that you've had the rotation kind of settle down a little bit, the bullpen roles and scenarios have kind of settled along with it. How important is that for you, and comfortable are you with where guys come out of the bullpen and things like that?
Well, it's very important. And the emergence of Graham Lawson this weekend too, hopefully will help us here down the stretch. We still need to have those starters solidify what we're going to get out of them, and that needs to be consistent effort from them. But I think obviously Eddie has settled into kind of the swing man at this point. We bring him in high leverage situations when we need to stop rallies, when we need to try to hold a 2-run lead. He's been a very important guy in that role. Sawyer Bridges has kind of emerged into a guy that we can close the game out with if necessary. And so those other guys, we still have some guys that need to pitch better out of the bullpen. But we're getting closer to having some defined roles, and it may be continued to be evaluated as we go, but I think we're as close as we've been all season with knowing kind of who to give the ball to in each situation.
What have you seen out of Ole Miss in your scouting reports?
They're a complete team. They hit over 300 as a team. They steal a lot of bases. They field at a 981 clip, which is elite level. They're pitching under 3.5 at this point. So it's a complete team. And you have to play really good baseball to beat them. So we're going to have to be at our best. I'm sure they'll be at their best, and it'll be a great SEC baseball series.
The Ole Miss offense, by the way, has struck out the fewest times in the SEC with just 273 punch-outs going into their game earlier this week against Arkansas Pine Bluff. I mean, this is a tough lineup to negotiate, Corn.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, that's why they are the best team in their division, and I guess you could make the argument that, well, I guess second best team right behind Arkansas by a game, but 12-9 in the league and 35-11 overall. Certainly one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the league, along with Florida and Arkansas at this point. I want to say this about the SEC, though. The tournament coming up in a couple of weeks in Hoover, man, this thing is wide open. I mean, think about it. Kentucky, Vandy, South Carolina, all around 500 in the league. Auburn got off to the great start and sort of settled down. LSU, 10-11 in the league. Mississippi State, 9-12. Any of these teams can rise up and put together a good week.
Don't forget about the defending champs. Florida's still pretty strong too.
Yeah, but I'm saying any of these. What I'm getting at is, you got your elite, the top of the league, but it's the meat of the league, which is still very difficult. Which means anybody during that week could get hot.
We'll preview Clemson and the Seminoles when we come back, and also Corn's recruiting report for this Thursday.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, as we continue on a Thursday. Will, the Corn, the Pro, hope you're enjoying yourself today. You said you had some well wishes you wanted to send out.
Yeah, just a quick shout out from all of us here to Mark Sturgis at ESPN Upstate, good friend of all of ours. He had some surgery earlier this week. Glad to see that he's feeling fine, doing better. I think he is back home, so wish him well and look forward to seeing Mark down the road at ACC Media Days, I'm sure, but we just wanted to say good luck in your recovery and hope everything goes well.
Kudos to the Sturge. Staying in the upstate, Clemson will play its final ACC home series at Doug Kingsmore Stadium Saturday through Monday when they face the Florida State Seminoles. Monty Lee's squad in first place in the ACC Atlantic, but taking on a Seminoles team that they have great respect for, and also having to negotiate exams this week. An 8-game win streak, not exactly what the doctor ordered with a long layoff, but head coach Monty Lee said they've needed it.
We needed some time with a number of guys to try to recover, from some of the nagging injuries that we have. So it's good to try to get our guys some recovery time, and also our pitchers. If you look over the last 2 weekends, we've really used our bullpen a lot. So, a few days off to be able to give those guys time to put the ball down and just let their arms recover a little bit is a good thing. Now, we've only got 2 days, basically 2 practice days to get ready for, one of the best programs in the country in Florida State. So that's probably the part that, is the toughest for me as the coach is we've got to get a lot done in the next 2 days in preparation for a great ball club.
How much do you pay attention to projections and RPI and that kind of stuff? And how much can this series help you as far as trying to host or maybe get a national series?
I think the worst thing you can do is look at all that stuff, quite frankly. I think we all know that, Florida State's an outstanding ball club. And we got to play good baseball to beat Florida State, and we've got to play our best baseball if we're going to win this series this weekend. So we don't worry too much about that stuff. I think when you start focusing on the RPI, you start focusing on those types of things, hosting implications, national seed implications. You're focusing on the wrong things. I think everybody is aware of it. Now, you wouldn't be human, if you got social media, you're aware of it. But our focus is not going to be any different than what it's been the last. Really all season, especially the last couple of weeks, because we've had a couple of really good weeks. So right now, my biggest job is to try to stay out of the way and just be consistent with what we've been doing week in and week out here lately. And, hopefully that'll be enough for us to play, again, our best baseball this weekend.
You and Cromie, you expect those guys to be 100%? Anybody else that you don't expect to go?
Cromwell, we expect to be 100% and ready to go. We're actually going to enter squad today. We're going to throw some guys that need some work on the mound and get some at-bats. And, Kier's still a question mark. We're not quite sure if he's going to be ready or not. Today and tomorrow will be a good indicator of whether he'll be ready this weekend. I would say he is questionable for the weekend right now.
You're obviously really familiar with Florida State. What have you been able to glean from them in your scouting this week?
You got those strikes. You got to get ahead of those guys. That's the big thing. If you don't, they're going to get you. They walk a lot. They're very, very patient in their approaches at the plate to try to drive the pitch count up. So they do a really good job of that. So, they do everything they can to get runners on base. So the key for us is getting to strike one. We've got to get to strike one against their lineup. Because they'll take advantage of the free pass. I know we take advantage of the free pass as well. They got 50 more walks than we do. So if that tells you anything, how much they take advantage of the free pass, we've got to throw strikes and force them to swing the bat. And they've got a very talented lineup. They've got some good hitters, so we got to play good defense behind our pitching staff. And we got to continue to swing the bats the way we've been swinging the bats. That's a big key for us. We've been able – the big difference in the last 2 weekends outside of our pitching and defense is we've been able to score runs without taking advantage of the free pass. We have to be able to continue to do that against Florida State. Florida State leads the conference in strikeouts, I believe. So they've got some power arms. There's going to be some swinging and missing because they've got good stuff. But we've got to be able to hit our way on base and swing the bats offensively and score runs. And we got to get to strike one, get ahead of their guys and limit the free pass on their offense and play good defense behind our pitching staff.
Corn, I'm all for momentum, but with having played 5 games in the last week and how much they use their bullpen, I'm fine with Clemson going into this with having a full weeks of rest.
I don't disagree. And the back end of their bullpen has been really, really good. So I know that if it's a close ball game and Clemson gets to the 7th, 8th inning with a lead, they're awfully hard to beat because they got guys they can bring in and really shut you down offensively. And Tigers have won. I was just looking back. Florida State won the series last year down in Tallahassee, but Clemson won the series the previous 2 years. So they won 2 of the last 3 series against the Seminoles. Always good ball games, usually pretty tight ball games when these teams get together.
You have some recruiting for us.
Yeah, let's update the recruiting here on a Thursday night. And we begin with the latest on Luke Deal, tied in from Emerald. had a busy April, taking a bunch of visits, officials to NC State, Michigan, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Auburn, and, of course, Clemson unofficially. And he tells us that all were different in their own way. It gave him a chance to get away from the area and compare other nationally proclaimed programs against the one in his backyard, which is Clemson, which he has, of course, seen a lot, and he grew up a Clemson fan. Clemson remains in regular contact. Danny Pearman is recruiting him. Emerald started spring practice Tuesday. NC State and Ohio State have been in. Auburn is due in tomorrow. Michigan and Notre Dame are coming in later in the month. So all these schools they're not just saying, all right, go ahead and go to Clemson and enjoy yourself. They're all making a push for him. He's looking for family atmosphere, big-time football, and he, of course, wants to be in a position to win a championship as well. He is not married to May 25th for a decision. That's the date he has put out there. If he's not ready, he will extend the process. And he says right now, really, he's not thinking about a favorite, not thinking about a top this or that. He has clarity in that his mind is clear and open as he starts now the process of trying to make a decision. Clemson offered defensive end Christian Rory, 6'5", 267 of Raleigh. Some other offers are Notre Dame, North Carolina, NC State, Duke, Maryland, Virginia. Tigers also offered defensive end Etinosa Rubin, 6'4", 255 from Riverside, Missouri, which I think is Kansas City.
I don't know what that is.
Close to Kansas City, maybe a suburb. Arizona State, Kansas State, Louisville, Kentucky, Missouri, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, Wisconsin, some other offers.
Yep, Platte County, right by North Kansas City.
USC in the top 5 with defensive back Johnny Dixon of Tampa, with Alabama, Miami, Penn State, and Ohio State. USC commit defensive lineman Jakeem Green was offered by Alabama. That's big in that, I mean, this is a guy that had nothing. And then South Carolina offered, he committed. Now Alabama has offered. They must have seen him in the spring and been impressed. And
don't you love when that happens, when you offer somebody and then all of a sudden someone else takes notice and say, oh.
Well, that's football. We say it all the time. That's just blood in the water for the Sharks. Clemson target, defensive lineman DJ Dale of Pinson, Alabama, committed to Alabama. A little bit more on Fort Dorchester receiver Justin Williams. We told you he was going to go to Northeast Mississippi, and his coach said he plans to enroll in June, and he hopes to only spend one season at the junior college if he can get it done in that sped-up fashion, with a plan on, of course, returning or going to USC if all goes well once that is done. Clemson offered defensive end David Ojabo, 6'5", 233 of Blairstown, New Jersey. He's a heavily recruited prospect. Basketball, 6'10", Oral Roberts grad transfer Javon White told us he's down to Clemson and LSU. Visited both last week. He plans a decision this week.
That'd be big for them.
Yeah, that would be another quality transfer for them. And this is a guy who's the beautiful thing about this guy, he's immediately eligible. He's got 2 years of eligibility.
Fantastic.
So you couldn't ask for anything more than that. That'll do it for recruiting. Remind you to check it out on our website at SportsTalkSC.com. On Twitter, use the hashtag STRecruiting to take you right to all of our stories.
Interview-filled second hour. We'll talk to Furman head coach Clay Hendricks. The money coach Fran Halloran stops in for his usual Thursday visit. We'll hear from Rusty Wallace as well, the NASCAR legend. But next, we will continue our trip around ACC and SEC spring football recaps. We look at the Texas A&M Aggies. Mark Passwaters of AggieYell.com will give us his take on the start of the Jimbo Fisher era in College Station. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network.